Hey alumni, welcome to InterVarsity World Changers, the podcast celebrating God's world-changing work in and through InterVarsity alumni like you. I'm your host, John Steele, and today we're talking with Tatiana, a Maryland Institute College of Art alumna, and Tatiana is changing the world through her social enterprise, Zuahaza. Zuahaza seeks to preserve culture, partner with artisans, and empower women through the creation of authentic Colombian textiles and home goods. This conversation was recorded a couple of years ago before this podcast ever existed, but it fits so perfectly with the vision of what we're doing here. Be sure to check the show notes for a link to Zuahaza's website, for a special alumni discount, and for a link to a host of other alumni-owned businesses. Thanks for tuning in, and enjoy Tatiana's story. Hello, Tatiana. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I'm really glad that you're here today. This is super exciting because this is my longest distance interview. I'll let you tell people why that is. But as we get started here, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I'm Tatiana. I am from Colombia, South America. I live in Colombia. So currently we're talking from, I guess, very north to very south of the Americas. I grew up in Bogota, the capital of Colombia. And then I had the privilege of going to study abroad after I graduated high school. I went to school in the US and I was able to study art. It's a passion that I always had since I was a kid. And so it was really, really sweet to see God's plan come to fruition since I was a kid, and just like early memories of painting and doing art crafts and just loving it. And then kind of seeing myself one day in college and realizing and waking up to the reality that I was studying this and I always dreamt of doing it. So that was definitely a dream come true for me to go study art in an institute that I always admired. So that's a little bit of my background story.
Yeah, that's great. And so tell me, where was it that you studied?
Oh, I studied in an institute called the Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore, Maryland. I'd never heard of Baltimore before, the art school, just the Hairspray musical. That was pretty much
That's
it.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah, so it was really new for me. And studying art in Baltimore was, I think, also very transformative because it is a city that has a lot of community involvement. A lot of people there that are creatives are just so used to using their skills to serve the community around them in any way possible. So I think I really enjoyed that it was not just like a bubble of art and galleries, but it was always making sure that whatever we're learning in school, we are taking out and putting it to work in real life.
That's awesome. I assume that it was during your time in Baltimore that you met InterVarsity. Tell me just a little bit about that story and any, like, how that happened, and if there's maybe one sort of standout important memory from that time.
Yeah. So when I arrived to school, I was excited, but also very nervous to find a Christian community.
Sure.
Like, really was definitely in my prayers every day as I arrived as a freshman. And I remember that it was until I met some friends that were at the international welcoming booth for international students. And they said that they had seen this club InterVarsity and that there was, Bible studies or something like that. And so I immediately was like, I need to go there. But, as a freshman, as you arrive and you're just starting to meet people and feel comfortable, it wasn't really until a couple months into school that I made my way into one of those meetings. And one memory that really, I always carry with me is one night, the InterVarsity from another school that was really close by, and the InterVarsity group from my school, they decided to partner together for like a small worship night because none of us visual artists knew how to play an instrument. And the other school was a music school. So obviously they were like, I'll play some guitar for you guys. And that night was really sweet because I remember that night because it was the night that I met some of my best friends that I still have to today. We just bonded so well. It was really sweet. It was, like a really nice worship night. But more than that, I see it as a moment where God kind of answered a lot of prayers from a lot of students that, we're all scattered around school in our dorm rooms, like praying for community and friends. And then that night we all kind of just met each other. And I can still say that they're some of my best friends to today. So that was really sweet. It was like, definitely felt like God just answered all of our prayers that night.
That's really cool. Amazing to see how something like worship, which, we oftentimes think of this vertical experience, like us and God kind of experience, that something even like worship is also this very communal experience, this sort of horizontal, and that those things sort of happen together, and not only useful for drawing us closer to God, but useful for drawing us closer together. And that's something that actually cemented relationships for you for years to come. That's really exciting. So then it's after graduation then that, and I'm sure that there are things that are happening during your college career as well that are happening that start sort of moving you in the direction of what is the business that you own today. You are an alumni business owner. And so tell us just a little bit about the business that you own, just a little preview, and then I want to hear more about the story that got it to where it is today.
Yeah. So my business is called Zuahaza. It's an artisan business. We focus on making decorative home goods like pillows, blankets, table linens, like anything that's home decor. But it's the focus is that it's handmade by artisan communities in Colombia. So that's kind of like the focus of it. And we also have incorporated a sustainability aspect to our business, and is using, just materials that are really friendly with the earth, that are really friendly with people that use it. So it's something that we feel that we're honoring people and honoring the earth by using this type of materials that are not harmful. So that's the business as a general.
Here we are already starting to see some of these threads of like the experiences that you had in Maryland and this sort of communal art. This isn't something that just stays in-house. This is something that interacts with the world around it. Can you tell me the significance behind the name Zuahaza? Like, for me, Minnesotan, what does that mean?
Yeah, sure. So Zuahaza is technically a made up word of two words. It's two indigenous words from a mountainous region where I'm from originally. And the two words mean my and then sister. So I basically kind of combined them together to create a word that to me just meant sisterhood. And that was really significant to start the business, because a product-based business generally has a focus on the product, of course. Like you have to make a product and make a sale. That's the whole point of it.
Right.
But really behind it, I really wanted this to be more of a collaboration, a community between mostly women, because women in Colombia are the traditionally the ones that make products, craft, that are crafts. You would say craftsmen, but craftswomen, I would say.
Sure. Yes.
And so I just kind of felt a need of wanting to symbolize the relationship that I wanted to carry through the years to come running the business, instead of a boss and an employee sort of relationship, more of like sisters helping each other and growing each other to make products and sell them.
That's amazing. It sounds that there's a very different relationship that you have with these people than what we might think of from, the products that we see at Target or whatever it might be. That's amazing. Tell me the story of what inspired Zuahaza. Like, what are sort of the origins of the business that exists today?
Yeah. So I would go all the way back to college. I quickly fell in love with textiles. I fell in love with craft mostly. I started off as a painter, like that's traditionally what I did and I still do and I love. But I think I really resonated with textiles because there was a huge human connection behind it. There's so much history, so much culture. I was fascinated by the way textiles are kind of like a language on its own. If you see textiles from, the ancient Middle East, ancient Indonesia, and then the same time in South America and Mesoamerica, these communities were making textiles at the same time in incredibly complex ways. And they had never kind of met each other before. So I don't know, there was so much history and culture that I thought it was beautiful. And so from there, I just started to focus my training in textiles, in learning how to weave, how to naturally dye, how to, like understand what makes a fabric. From there was a trip that I did with my school to Turkey the summer of my junior year. And there was one specific NGO that we met, and I loved their story. That day, I really felt like God spoke to me about potentially what my skill could be put into work. Basically, the whole model of the NGO was that they wanted to preserve the craft that a community of weavers had, and little by little was getting lost because of mass production. And so a lot of artisans just couldn't compete with those prices. And so the history really of their culture was getting lost.
Wow.
And then people, therefore, they stopped practicing it. And so someone saw that. They said, this is something beautiful. We can't allow this to be lost. And also people were losing a livelihood. So they decided to basically create an NGO to support craft, to, give them the time and space to do it. Like making a rug can take you months. So They would give them the economic support to be able to sit down, make a rug in like the traditional ways with the materials. Fast forward to today, this NGO has really revitalized this community economically and culturally. And so after I graduated, I was able to get some internships in NGOs that were doing something very similar. And then eventually I made my way back to Colombia after getting some knowledge and experience. I decided to come back to Colombia and start my own business, doing a very similar model. But instead of a nonprofit, I decided to start it as a social enterprise. So basically just a business, but focused on the people. So basically like the profit that comes in, we want to reinvest in people and making sure that our team and the artisans have a sustainable income to grow the business.
Maybe this is my Western mind at work here. When I think about going into a store and buying something, like I don't even think about that as being something that's representative of culture and something that like requires a skill to develop, and that even that skill has ties to culture. And like that is fascinating to me to think about the experiences that you've had and the work that you're doing today, that it's not just creating a practical product, that it is about preserving culture and sharing culture with the world in things that are fairly practical. And that's such a fascinating concept to me. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no, I think I could nerd out all day about just why I love textiles. And a lot of it has to do with by learning how a textile was made. You start learning, oh my goodness, there was this, community back in this time, in this other place that used to, transform these fibers to make this garment, because that's the way that people would, use this for weddings, or I don't know, something like that. And it just fascinates me because this skill set takes, it probably took them, hundreds of years to arrive to what it is today, right? It's like this kind of human flourishing. And I just see God in all of it, really. Like at the end of the day, to me, learning about culture, learning about like how things were made, it always kind of went back into like, wow, like God is incredible at, giving humans the ability to make things so beautiful. Like sometimes I see some artwork and I am amazed at how in the world did that came to be. And it's really just, like we are image bearers of God, and he made us to be able to create things beautifully the way that he creates things beautifully. And so I think that is worth, for sure, like preserving for people to learn about and to ultimately see God in everything that we do, even if it's just a pillow, right? Like see his handwork in there.
Right. I love that. So Tatiana, tell us, you've already alluded to some of these things, but tell us just a little bit more. How do these experiences that you've had, how do they impact the way that Zuahaza operates and the products that it provides today?
Sure. So through the experiences I had, I was able to have a grasp of what it actually takes to have a business operating in the real world and how all of these values that I wanted to carry, like the challenges and like the good things and the bad things of how to really make that happen. I'm thankful now that I did experience some of the negative side of things of, handmade and craft and fair trade world today. Just started to let me know, like, there's a lot of talk out there, and really, how do you know when a business is truly doing this? It's difficult to trust, right? And so through those, I would say more negative experience of seeing the darker side of like production and paying people fairly. I really wanted God to help me figure out a way, and I'm still learning. I think this is just like a learning process of how do people put people first in my business, how to communicate to my audience the most transparent way I can about our practices and why it's important to be transparent about them. Those experiences allowed me to really have the strength to choose to put people first always, no matter, and just trusting God that, like, okay, we didn't make sales or we didn't reach our sales goals, but people need to eat, and like people need to, buy like their basic needs. They have to pay rent, like all of these things. I need to put myself in their shoes and know that your paycheck is still going to arrive on time. The model of work that I want to do is make something, always pay the artisans. Then when we have enough money, okay, make more things. And that is really slow. Obviously, it's not ideal in like our fast-paced world where people just want things now and they want it shipped, 24 hours.
Right.
But it's the way that we can actually work out our values. So I'm just, trying to really make sure that we are growing our business at a sustainable pace, but it's for a long term. But on top of that, more than, making sure the business is successful, is I think, treasure relationships, treasure this wonderful women that God put in my life to be able to work with. And we've become actual friends. Like, we have grown together. We've, seen each other in bad moments and in good moments. But I think the most valuable thing that God has given the business is trust. Probably we are not, a big business, or we're not to the point that we want financially, but at like relationship level, I am really honored. I'm really happy that God has like helped me through this process of not putting money first, but really putting people first.
Yeah, it sounds like integrity across the board is a hallmark of Zuahaza and the way that Zuahaza operates. That, integrity in the product itself, that this is from this community. This is the way that they've been doing this for a long time, and we are maintaining that. That's the product that we talk about, and that's the product that is delivered to you. Integrity in saying, like, we value our artisans and we want to make sure that you are put first, that this is a partnership, that we are from beginning to end, we are going through this together. And integrity, even in just in what you said, that this name stands for, like my sister, that this is happening here in this place, and that you're seeing that in the way that this operates, that we operate like we're family. We look out for each other and we take care of each other. That's really exciting to hear about a business that's operating that way, even if, like you said, it has to move a little slower than you might really want it to, as far as a growing business, that it's developing a strong foundation that can maintain even through difficult times, that you and your artisans, you lament together the difficult times because you feel it together, and you also celebrate the victories together because you get to feel those together as well. So I also know about another story here that I would love to hear a little bit more about, and that's because of the way that Zuahaza was developing at the time, that there was actually an opportunity to support rural communities in a new way during the pandemic in particular. Can you tell us a bit about that experience?
Yeah, sure. Our business launched in November 2019. So just a few months before COVID changed our lives.
Oh, gosh.
So it was, at that moment, I had started to work with the main group of weavers that they're currently the ones that make the majority of our products, soft textiles, pillows and throws and all products with cotton. And so by that moment, we had already developed a small inventory. We launched our website, kind of like brand new. And then COVID hit, and obviously, everything collapsed in Colombia. Everything was shut down. The roads, like, you couldn't use the road to anything. Like, the roads connecting towns with cities, everything was absolutely closed.
Wow.
Unless you were someone that's working, in the medical field or food delivery. But apart from that, you couldn't just take your car and go somewhere.
Wow.
So that meant that many rural communities, where they depend on selling their craft, they go sometimes to cities, to art fairs, and they have to travel so long to get to these places to be able to sell their products. For almost, I would say, 6 months, they were in their towns, locked up, basically. Thankfully, God is so good that because we launched before the pandemic, we already had a website. Our business really focused on the international market. So we had to figure out all the logistics, right? Like, not just put the website, put the payment site, all the logistics of shipping a product, like all of that work, basically, we did by November 2019. And so I say it's a blessing, because when 2020 came and it was March, and no one could do anything, at least we had kind of our operations working generally okay.
Right.
We could sell products. We had our inventory in the US mostly. And then with like a month into the pandemic, FedEx was able to pick things up in Bogota at least, and then send them to other countries. So in that moment, there was a kind of government organization that they basically just have like a contact book of a bunch of artisan groups across Colombia. It's not just textiles, but it's baskets, rugs, like other products. They basically just kind of send out an email, like asking people, I know you make this product, but are you willing, like, can you make also baskets or design some baskets with this other group that is literally stuck over there and can't sell their products? And so that was just like an opportunity to say yes to stepping into something that was probably not familiar. Like, we had just developed a bunch of like soft textiles, and it took so long to start this business. And then immediately was like, okay, now make some baskets. Like, okay, sure. So we started to work through 2020 with a family that makes rugs, and then a family that makes baskets in other regions of the country. They were making samples, and then they're sending me like WhatsApp images of how they looked. And then because courier services and shipping was allowed to transit through the country, they were able to at least put their products in like a truck, and they would arrive to Bogota. Now, I see to today how baskets and rugs have really complemented our brand and have allowed us to grow really into like becoming a home brand, not just soft textiles. And we're able to kind of like allow more artisan groups to join in with us and sell their products.
Wow. So this ended up being a situation where you could help support these communities that were otherwise sort of closed off as far as being able to get their products to market, and even open them up to an even broader market than maybe what they would have had anyways. And also something that complemented your brand that you had sort of unknowingly made space for. It's just amazing the way that God was clearly at work, just setting up this infrastructure to make space for something that you didn't even know was going to happen, that would end up being mutually beneficial. And that's such a cool story. I love that.
Yeah, God's timing is incredible. I don't realize it in the moment, of just putting up a website or a business, and the what ifs, the fears, right, come in your mind. But then, it's really sweet to look back and realize like how incredible it is that God just like one step at a time has been putting people, situations, things that at that moment you didn't think too much about them, and now you just think how He used that to really bring you to the next step. It is truly like, to me, it really has felt this journey of starting a business and growing this business slowly as truly a journey of faith. I'm constantly praying for faith. I'm always like, God, give me more faith, because there's always something that comes up that makes you doubt. But then He like brings up memories and things about like, remember when I did this? Remember this? Like, it's always like this like reminding of Him taking care of you even when things really don't look good.
So you're already starting to speak a little bit to my next question, I think, but I'll ask it. I'll ask it anyways. And that's, as students with InterVarsity, we would hear this vision over and over and over again of seeing lives transformed, the campuses renewed, and world changers developed. And I just wonder how, when you look back, how is your work with Zuahaza impacting you as a world changer who's in development yourself? And how do you see it playing a role in God's world-changing work? Can you see those things happening? And if so, I'd love to hear about them.
Oh, yes. I think starting a business and being faithful to running it has been probably, I don't know, for now, the hardest thing I've done. It's been really, really, I guess, just emotionally exhausting, like lots of tears, lots of moments of not really knowing what's going to happen. But I think that it's pretty much what faith looks like. Like I remember reading this book, I think it was by Brennan Manning, and it was about trust. And it was about like how trust is not like this is really beautiful, like cozy word is really like when everything looks like it's burning up, and it is burning up, that's when you trust. And I think I've had to really kind of grow in my understanding of what trusting God means. What I said, like in very specific situations with the business, for example, I'm not a business person, I'm an artist. So, starting a business and saying yes to that was already a challenge to me. I'm like, how in the world am I going to do this? But kind of in that moment, just saying yes to the business, I felt like God was leading me towards that path of starting a business. And, shortly a year after, he had already put someone else in my life that God somehow allowed them to find me through social media. And this girl now is my business partner. She has a background in business and marketing and like all the skills that I do not have and I'm not good at. God brought someone, right? So it's like things like that like it feels so overwhelming in the moment when you don't know how to do something. When I was, trying to price my products and then price them really badly or, made so many mistakes and was like desperate. And slowly God was just already kind of working out something, like putting someone that was going to eventually come and help me. So that's just like one small example, but I think it's been really sweet to see how I personally have grown to have like a different posture before God when a problem comes up. And instead of, like you do feel all the emotions, but then what do you do with those emotions? Like take them to the Lord, take them to prayer. Like I have kind of learned to really take things to prayer more often now that I face more challenges with the business. And that has been really sweet because when I started the business, I really asked God that I wanted this business to really never lose his focus of why it was started and its purpose. As I mentioned, like I, always wanted to make products and the business is a product-based business. But the whole point of it is not really selling a product. At the end of the day, it is really walking out what it looks like to love your neighbor, to love God, to learn how to run a business in a way that is pleasing to him and that is honoring to him. So that means, how the way that we treat one another, the way that we treat the environment. And in a textile business, that's really important, right? Because it's a very polluting industry. So how am I going to walk out the values of taking care of and stewarding God's creation? So it really, like running a business is really, if we set our hearts on it, like God can really transform us to grow into, kind of citizens of the kingdom in the way that we are always kind of bringing it back to the Lord and to the fruits of the Spirit and what he wants us to do. So, and how it operates in the world. Like as I said, I've seen businesses that either are plainly like not good, like not paying people fairly and not lying about it and just not
Right.
doing it. Or there are other businesses or organizations that they have all the words and all the marketing and all the strategy, but who knows if that's true, right? Like it's like lacking some integrity and like transparency. So I really hope that like with Zuahaza, even if we, like never become a large business and we're always kind of like a smaller family, I don't mind as long as we keep our values intact, as long as we are able to, to respect and honor the makers, to treat them with respect, to see them grow and flourish. My dream would be to see these artisans, like a lot of them are younger women that have started to work with us, and they've are from a background that they never had the privilege of going to university like I did. So some of these dreams coming to fruition, I love to see that, and even if it's just one or two people, like having that impact in their lives would be incredible. Ultimately, because I want people to know that even though we don't market ourselves as a Christian business or Christian organization, I want people that if they see Zuahaza's example and they come and speak to us and they really kind of start asking questions, I want kind of God's fruit and example to show through our actions more than anything. And I think that's what we're called to as this business, is that we're probably not being, like in the Christian sector or evangelizing or, kind of more of this activities that we do in church and in Christian circles. But I really want to be able to kind of walk the talk, right? And be able to be like, like we do this because we love Jesus and that's what he's done in our lives. And so that's kind of what we want to do through our business.
A business that, that through the way that it operates in the, in a very public space, so that people can look and see by your example that, oh, there's something different in the way that they operate here. And it's the way of Jesus that fuels the way that Zuahaza operates. So for all of us who are here listening as you're sharing, tell us, how can we get access to Zuahaza products? And like, are there any that you recommend? I'm sure you recommend all of your products, but as a like, hey, if you're looking sort of for like points of entry for the Zuahaza catalog, are there places that you would recommend people looking?
Yeah, of course. So we have a website and we are on social media. You can go to zuahaza.com, and then our Instagram, we're mostly on Instagram as also just Zuahaza.
Okay.
And what I would recommend is like in our website, we have kind of a lot of different tabs with information of our story. And then also we have a artisan page basically where you can get to see the faces of all the makers and read a little bit about each other, learn about them, read about how long have they been working as makers and some of their dreams and things that they share in this page is really sweet. There's a page where we talk about our sustainability philosophy. And so you can read a little bit more about why we use organic cotton, why we use some of these natural fibers, and why we really stand for using natural materials and processes. We have a blog where we have, we've been kind of putting a little bit more information if you're, like really a nerd in this like area like me and you really want to learn more. We have a blog about like organic cotton and fique, which is a fiber that is natural to Colombian, where is used for our baskets. If you want to really kind of learn more about those things, we have it in the blog. And then lastly, we obviously have our shop. So if you go to the shop, you'll be able to see all the categories of products that we currently sell: pillows, blankets, table linens, baskets, rugs, everything. And in each kind of product description, you can read a little bit more about the inspiration behind each product, all of the like basically details of how it was made, and kind of like all of that transparency that I was talking about. And then we do have products that are ready to ship. As we said, we tried our best to kind of partner with resources in the US to be able to store our products so that people didn't have to wait for the maker to make it and then wait a couple of months to receive something. You can order them and receive them. Like they ship like 3 to 5 days, business days since you order them. The larger items are obviously take a little longer. Some of them are not in stock, but we put the button made to order. So if you really like something and you don't mind waiting, I encourage you, to just click on the made to order. And basically what we do is we send email updates of the artisans making the product for you.
Okay.
And it's something really sweet because
That's
people
awesome.
do get to have this connection with someone that's making something for their home. You can also customize something if like a rug is not in the specific size you want. You can send us an email like, hey, like, can we make this larger or smaller? So that's the nice thing about being a small business is we can like really personalize things a lot. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. Obviously, you don't have to look through it all, but if you're interested, there it is.
Yeah. This is so cool. This is such a great, such a great opportunity to be able to partner with you and with the people that you're partnering with. And now, if I remember correctly, we actually do have a discount code for alumni as well.
Yes, it's just Zuahaza IV, like our partnership.
Yes. Perfect. That's awesome. Tatiana, thank you so much for being on here with us today. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being an alumna who is passionate about makers and about their stories and about the history of their products and about partnering with the image bearers of God and the amazing things that they're making. And it's so cool to be able to have you among the ranks of our alumni and to be able to hear such a cool story. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you, John. Yeah, it was an honor to talk with you and for everyone listening. I hope that this story really encourages your journey, whatever that looks like, if it's a business venture or not. I think there's themes that can be applied in anyone's life. And I'm just happy to be speaking, after hearing God's voice and asking me to start this business. And I can share at least a little bit of what it's been so far. So I do feel very honored and thank you for the opportunity to share this story.
Thanks for tuning in, alumni. Check the show notes for more information about today's guest and for ways that you can be praying for your fellow alum. If you know someone who needs to hear this story, take just a moment to share the episode with them and then be sure to leave us a rating and a review as well. Now go change that world, alumni. Thanks for listening to InterVarsity World Changers. This podcast is brought to you by the InterVarsity Alumni Relations Team, hosted and produced by John Steele, production assistance by Mike Santera, and our theme song is Crazy by InterVarsity alumnus Andy Minio.